Okay, so now we're really cooking. We're in the process of re-illustrating our background image, which is a complex one, in this case, a skull. And I've started to organize my graphics into different layers so I can keep track of them. So let's start with a new layer, and let's talk about how we might maximize a couple of different colors to start to give us a sense of depth, even though we're working with big flat areas of color. So let's call this one the right orbit or right eye. And I want to try to capture this area with at least, say, 4 shapes and 4 colors to really make it seem like it's receding into the background. Okay, so first step, I'm going to start with the largest detail, which in this case would be sort of the eye socket. It gets a little hard to figure out where this line is right here, so I'm just going to have to make an artistic decision. So we'll come through. Still, it's if you're not don't have a lot of practice at this, it's still perfectly fine to come through with your single clicks on the pen tool and then go back and refresh them after the fact. I just like to capture a couple of little details in there to keep things from being too mechanical. I accidentally got an extra dot, so I'll delete it. V for black arrow, click on that shape, and then reverse the colors so I can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so now that I've got the outside established, let's go ahead and illustrate this thing again. And part of the complexity here is that, I have a nice line there where I can say things get a little bit darker, but then that line comes up and meets my current line up here at the top. So we don't want to have to try and draw that thing exactly right twice. So I'll start way up here in negative territory. That was a little generous. And then I'll kind of come through like this. So now I'm picking up my true edge. Here you can see I did a little trick where I dragged into a corner, and then if I hold the Option or Alt key, I can actually break that 180-degree relationship with the tangency handle, so I can kind of have my cake and eat it too in terms of something that's like half corner and half curve. So I'll come through and I'll get something like this. Now, I would probably get in here and mess around a little bit with the fact that I'm cutting through that detail. So here, for example, I might take this tangency handle and stretch it way out, just because I don't want that detail to have like 2 different colors inside of that tiny point. Again, anything I do out here does not matter because I'm about to carve that away. So watch how I do this process. First off, this piece of graphic imagery we're going to want to keep in its whole form, right? So we're going to want to have like a solid color of the form that looks exactly like that. But we actually want a copy of it that stays exactly in the same place, and we will sort of multiply that copy by this shape, and all we want to keep is the place where they overlap, which will get rid of this extraneous geometry. So I select this guy right here and say Object, or rather Edit Copy, and then crucially paste in place. This is very important. So you can see Shift-Command-V, paste in place. It's not going to look like anything happened, but if I go up here to my layers, I should be able to see 2 identical layers here. So one of them will get selected when I click there, the other one won't. If you want to check, you can just delete it. You can see that there's still one there. So undo, so I have one of these guys selected. Now I'll shift select this guy. And now I'll come over here to the Pathfinder, and if that's not up for you, go to Window and Pathfinder. And the one that we're interested in, you'll just pick these little descriptive pictures. So the one you can see here, if 2 boxes are overlapping, then only the white area where they meet is maintained. So I'll click on that, and then you'll see that this thing has been carved down so that it lands exactly perfectly within that vertical limit right there. So now I can start to show you where this is going. If I fill this one, and I'll do this trick where I right click and say Arrange Send Backwards. So that's going to get it further down in my layer hierarchy. I can also drag it up and down right here. I'll click there to select this other path that we just made. And I can reverse those colors, but it's exactly the same, right? So now I'll come up into here and I'll just darken that down a little bit. And then if I click out here into space and maybe hide the background image, you can see I get that super crisp line where these 2 things meet. So this is just an invaluable part of this process, the pathfinders, copy and paste in place and so forth, because you're never really going to get this to work by hand, at least not so that it looks the same as what I'm doing. So let's go down maybe one or two more steps. I'll take both of these and, well, maybe I'll do one at a time so we can switch back to outline version. And then for my next one up, I might come in here and do something like this. So all I care about is this part of the shape where we're not occupying the same line. But then because we are going to borrow our line from other shapes here, I can just sort of fake it. So this time it's going to be a relationship between this object and this object, right? So once again, now we'll take this dude and say Command-C for copy, Shift-Command-V for paste in place. I have one of those selected. I want to combine it with, see, I'm getting confused now too, this shape. And then when I do the Pathfinder there, right, now we get yet another shape that is smaller and adopts some of the same edges as the shape above it. And then finally I'll come in with the pen and we'll just grab that place where the optic nerve travels back into your brain. Kind of creepy when you think about it. That's maybe a little more cartoony than I would go if I was doing this for real, but this is just a demo for you guys. So hopefully you know the drill at this point. I select the shape that is containing or about to clip the one that we've just made. I Command-C and then Shift-Command-V for paste in place. This might just be kind of a visual stutter on my part, but I like to deselect everything, reselect, Shift select, so now those two are together, and then say just give me the overlap, like that. Okay, so now we'll go to this guy. Let's say flip it around and make it quite dark. Now we can go here. So watch this little trick. I'll hit I on the keyboard and I drop that thing, then double click and then just make it slightly lighter. I'll go here, I on the keyboard, click that, double click here, slightly lighter. V for the black arrow, click that, I, click that, double click here, and lighter still. So I've done this with colors that are non-realistic except in the way that they get cooler and darker as they travel towards the background. And if I hide my my raster image and bring these back up, the right orbit now needs to be on top of top. So you're kind of constantly changing these names around. But you can start to see this thing coming together as an illustration that's going to both give us something kind of iconic and flat, really graphic, but it's also going to give us a good sense of what the depth is in this, ultimately 3D object.